What's up guys and welcome back to On the Brick. As some of you might remember, a few weeks ago I put out a video called Dear Brickfault and some other stuff. That video doesn't really matter, but what it did do is lead to a conversation between Brickvault and I that you can watch here. And in that conversation, I told Brickvault that I would be redoing this video to give a more fair analysis, as circumstances the last time around got a little weird. So I would encourage you to stick around and watch this one all the way through, as we will be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Brickvault, if you are watching, please do not worry too much about that ugly part. According to YouTube itself, Brickvault has been around since August 7th, 2015, or in other words, just over 5 years now. Their channel has certainly changed a bit from when it started, but in those 5 years they have grown to over 600,000 subscribers and have become rightfully one of the best known LEGO channels out there. Nowadays, you probably know them for their custom sets, and so that's what this video will primarily be focusing on. However, there are a few things that I wanted to say that don't really fit into any category. For instance, I really miss the live streams. I know recently, meaning in 2020, I know why they haven't been done this year, but at the same time, they haven't really been done for a while now. Now, I don't really know why, and I don't want to speculate. I'm sure they've talked about it somewhere at some point. But all I am saying is that I miss the live streams, and I would like it if they could start doing it again when it was possible to, of course. Again, not really something that was either good or bad, so I kind of just threw it here at the beginning. That said, let's start with the good. One of the biggest things to talk about that absolutely must be said is that without Brickvault, the custom community wouldn't really be what it is today. I know some people might take issue with me saying that, but think about it for a second. Despite places like Brickvault being a thing for quite some time, it wasn't really something that a younger audience knew very well. And while it's not necessarily difficult to navigate, it can be a challenging place to find what you want. Now, bring in Brickvault, take the platform off of Rebrickable, put it on to YouTube, and suddenly you have a lot more people who start knowing about custom LEGO. And then on top of that, Brickvault actually consolidates everything onto a single website, making it pretty easy to find exactly what you're looking for. And because of this, Brickvault have brought to light many wonderful designers out there, especially people like David Buckles or Jarek, who yes, might have been known in the community before then, but now are probably much better known. And that also means that if for any reason you can't find the set that you want, you can always design it yourself and try to sell it to them. And another thing I really like about this is just how many different designs there are out there, especially for things that are not Star Wars related. Don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars so much. But I'm also a fan of things like Horizon Zero Dawn, Mad Max, Back to the Future, Terminator, Batman, and of course The Expanse. And all of these IPs have a set that Brickvault sells instructions for. They even have dogs, which is still kind of weird considering everything else that they have, but you know, if you like that, they have it. So yeah, you know, they put these things out there, they work with a lot of wonderful designers, and they offer a great variety for anyone, really. I also really enjoy that they try to keep things minifig scale. I know this isn't the case for everything that they sell. Obviously, they have micro scale ships and UCS sets, but for the most part, everything is the same scale, which I really do enjoy, as it means I can compare the different vehicles to each other. Which, if you watched one of my old Q&As, you'll know is actually really important to me. So yes, Brickvault has a lot of good stuff about them, and that should not be undermined. Now, before we move on to the bad, I do need to make some things extremely clear. Just because I will be saying negative things here does not mean that I am attacking them. It does not mean that I am being toxic. It does not mean that I am attempting to start drama. It does not mean that I am lying and making everything up. Those are all things that people have told me before. This segment is just to serve no other purpose than saying, hey, here are some things that I think you might be able to do better. With that said, let's start off with the least bad thing that I could think of. This is actually something that I've seen a lot of people talk about, which is really why I'm including it. But, Brickvault, the estimated prices on some of your listings need to be updated. I actually went through a lot of your listings today, and most of them seem to be okay, but the prices of some have definitely fluctuated recently and could use with an updating. As one example, I will use your ATTE. On your website, it says that this set would cost approximately $275 to get. However, when I do no other settings than to select only from the United States, the price is now over $400. And that is admittedly a pretty significant difference. Even if I switch it to be international, the price does drop down to $242. However, the one thing that remains the same between the two of those is the shipping cost. Even though it's $242 to buy it internationally, when I include all shipping, it's over $315 now. And the $400 price of only buying from America does not include shipping. So this point is really twofold. First, some of your sets, not many of them, just some of your sets really could use an updating on estimated price. But second, I would also consider maybe including an additional $10 to $20, $30, $40, depending the size of the set, for shipping. And while that would certainly be extra work, the reason I'm suggesting it is for no other reason than because of how the consumer's mind works. Here's what I mean. Let's say you have a set that is estimated to cost $100, and so one of your fans saves up $100 to get that set. Assuming they have already bought the instructions from you, they then upload the XML file to Bricklink and hit the search button to find the pieces. For the sake of the argument, let's say that it does actually come out to $100, which will be fine until they go to actually buy them and suddenly realizes, no, it's closer to $120 or so for shipping. Now, while that is technically not on you, mentally and subconsciously, it is reflected back on you by the consumer. Because even though everyone should reasonably know to include shipping, I've had more than one person bring it up as an issue, and I think maybe adjusting for that in the estimated costs might help a little bit. Now, that said, and one of the actual issues that I have, and this is something that we did talk about briefly, is how stability is sacrificed for design. And this is something that not only they, but several of their designers have openly admitted. And I can understand why. It's a little difficult and challenging at times to get some of the shapes and angles that they need for these sets without resorting to less stable options. And while this is something that I have personally experienced with their sets, it's also something that I have seen a lot of other people bring up and complain about. Because yes, these are quote-unquote expert-level builds, that is understood on my end. However, so is something like the UCS Millennium Falcon. So maybe calling it expert level is a little too broad in that case then. But point being, based off of my own experiences and that I have seen from others, I wanted to include this. Now, I did have two more highly subjective things to include in this section, and that's why I'm leaving them for last here. First, it seems in my opinion that they don't really do many LEGO reviews anymore. I know that they do, and again with this year things have very clearly been different, but just like the live streams, it goes beyond just this year. It seems to me, at least, that if LEGO doesn't send them a set, then they're not reviewing it. And again, there could be a lot of different reasons for this. Maybe it's an internal discussion that they had and they figured it just wasn't worth the time or money, but I really don't want to speculate without having a clear idea of anything. But it is what got me started in watching their channel, and I think a lot of people got started watching their channel that way too. So I wanted to bring that up. Now, this next point is easily going to be the most controversial point in here, in my opinion, and that is the price of their instructions. Okay, look, this is one that I have seen a lot of discussion on, I've seen a lot of arguments on, and I've seen people go both way on, and I get both sides. On one hand, the designers spent a lot of time working on these sets and absolutely should get paid appropriately for that. On the other hand, it's a PDF file. And yes, I know when you buy the instructions, it comes with other things like the parts list or whatever. That's not that difficult to do. You can literally do it with any set you have on Bricklink right now. And yes, I know it's more challenging to do on other programs, but the point being is that sometimes what you get for the price you pay isn't really worth it. And also, I really want to make this clear here, this is something that goes way beyond Brickvault. In my opinion, custom instructions are oftentimes more expensive than they should be. Like I said, I'm all for helping designers and paying them for their work. I really do want to support them and absolutely do not want to take away from them at all. But at the end of the day, your average consumer is only going to use these instructions at most once or twice, depending. For instance, let's say I bought this ghost and then had to move across the country. I might need to put parts of it back together, and having the instructions would be useful. But I also know that at no point would I ever put together a second ghost. So spending $65 on a PDF file that I'm only going to use once is a lot of money. And while you could very easily argue that if I had the money to buy all the pieces for the ghost, then I should have the money to buy the instructions, no problem. And while I can definitely see where you're coming from, I don't really think that is fair to say. There are a lot of other things in the world with much more practical uses that $65 can go towards. I can fill the tank of my car twice with that kind of money. I can get a lot of food with that kind of money. In fact, I oftentimes don't even spend that much grocery shopping. I could buy a ton of books or movies with that kind of money. Things that have practical uses, and oftentimes I can actually use more than once. And like I said, this isn't just a Brickvault thing. It's really hard for me to justify the cost of some instructions when I'm only going to use it one time. Now, don't get me wrong, I always do buy the instructions for sets that I build, but it also means that there are some sets I very intentionally have not gotten yet because I just can't justify the cost. Now, Brickvault, by absolutely no means am I asking you to change the prices of the instructions you currently sell. I do not want you to go back and change all of these to $5 or $10 or anything like that at all. But the reason that I bring this up, and my hope in regards to you, is that maybe we can get a better understanding on what actually goes into determining the cost of the instructions. I'm not entirely certain if that is something you would be willing to share, but if it is, I would be very interested in hearing that. The better understanding that we as a community have for all these things, the easier it is for all of us to move forward in the right direction. So with that said, I do need to talk about the ugly. And I actually really debated with myself if I wanted to even include this section. With one more thing to say. And this one isn't really ugly. It really should have gone in that earlier section, but I felt like I needed to say it here after saying everything else. Because it's just been stinging in the back of my mind. It's been there, buzzing at me for a while now. See, I've put out some good reviews for Brickvault sets like the Gunship, or the ETA-2, or the TIE Fighter, but it was the 2 times that I put out a negative review that problems arose. Now, again, hopefully after our conversation that will be the end of it, and going forward, everything will be fine. You asked me to continue making honest reviews of your sets, and I would love to do that going forward. But I'm not so certain if I want to put in the time, effort, or especially the money if a negative review will cause problems with you, which I don't think it will, or with your fans, which it has. Currently, I own 3 more of your sets which I have not reviewed yet, and one of them does have some seriously negative aspects to it. But in all honesty, I just don't know know if I'm going to put that video out. So that's what I have to say today. I tried to give about 5 minutes to all 3 sections, so hopefully I was able to do that. And I want to be really clear here, Brickvault has a lot of good in them. They do a lot of good stuff, and as I'm sure you saw, the bad wasn't even really that bad, and the ugly did not directly involve them. I also want to be extremely clear that I have no issue with Brickvault themselves. They've opened the door to conversations, and I know that if I have any questions or issues with sets that I can just reach out to them. I don't have to speculate about anything, I can just ask, which is also why I very intentionally asked about the prices of instructions earlier in this video instead of reaching out, as that should be an open conversation. But please do let me know your thoughts on Brickvault in the comments down below. Is there anything about them that I didn't mention which you would like to bring up? Please do let me know. Please do like this video, and do remember to subscribe if you're a fan of Brickvault, of me, or of custom Lego. A huge thank you to my patrons whose continued support has kept this channel going and really does help a lot. If you want to join the likes of Jonathan and Jaden, you can do so by going to the link in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.